Welcome to Old Man Blerd. Hi, I'm John, and along with my friend Terrance, we make up a pair of lifelong geeks who happen to be black, over 50, but are certainly nerds first and foremost. The Alpha Geek and the Omega Freak. And we welcome everyone. And by everyone, we mean nerds, blerds, and bleaks, cosplayers and role players, geeks and freaks, Marvel zombies and distinguished competitors, Trekkies, Star Warriors, Batmaniacs, and Spider fans, Warhams, Whovians, AFOLs, adult fans of Legos, Tolkienites, Weeaboos, Supernatural Hunters, and Otakus, Ava Geeks, Bro Stars, and Sis Stars, Pokemon trainers, Potterheads, Bronies, Whovians, Browncoats, and Scoobies, and all nerd properties in between. Because we are over 50, we've seen a thing or two, and have experience, long experience, with a lot of these properties. So thank you for listening to Old Man Blerd.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
How goes it? Long time no see.
No, as long as it could be, it could be longer. We want that to happen.
Right? So what has your nerd week been for the last 21 days? So in July.
Really, a couple of comics. That's about it.
What?
I know. I bought a couple of comics and bought a couple of games. That's about it.
I've been trying to finish myself. I've been trying to finish up Elden Ring. Like, I'm at the Elden Beast, but I just know that I have to grind a bit to finish it. I beat Moog so I can get the DLC. But I guess people are complaining because, oh no, it's hard. They complained first with Elden Ring. It's like, oh, it's too easy. And then they made they made certain things hard, and they're like, oh, it's too hard. And then they nerf them, and then they're like, oh, it's too easy. They're just never happy. Soulsborne people.
With our society is that they always complain when especially when it comes to media or geekdom, and that sometimes actually destroys the property.
Sure, but I think they came out and made the DLC like old school hard, and so people are like, my level 200 character is dying over and over again. It's like, well, you gotta make it challenging. So I haven't even beat the Elden Beast yet, so I'm on the last boss, and I'm like, I can't quite manage it because I'm so weak from the boss that right before him. But I've been doing that. I've been reading One Piece and all the One Piece. I'm not going to have any spoilers, but the One Piece manga went in some interesting directions that I'm not sure where Oda's going. I trust it because at this point I have hundreds of hours in either reading.
I was going to say you invested a lot of time in it.
Yeah, if you're a One Piece person, it's kind of like, well, I guess this is where we're going. I mean, nothing too crazy. There's just one thing that happened with one character that I was like, I don't know if I like that development, but it's fine. So yeah, he's in the end game. But the big discussion topic, I think, for today is that neither of us went to Fan Expo. What used to be the Denver Comicon till San Diego got mad and told them, no, you can't use Comicon because Comic Convention, that abbreviation is trademarked, I guess. So it went to Fan Expo. But before it was Denver Comic Con, it was Comic Fest and Star Fest and all of the things. And neither of us went.
Yeah,
neither of us. Yep. Neither of us went. So Fan Expo, no. Not a hard. Was it a hard no? Or a soft no?
Well, it was a wallet no.
Wallet no. Yeah, I think a little bit of a wallet no.
Because there are like 4 or 5 stars, that you wanted to see, you've been wanting to see a long time, or you would take the advantage of seeing them, but
Who all was
You
there?
know,
I missed who actually was there this time
Melissa
around.
Tomei.
Marissa Tomei.
Yes.
Okay. Wasn't there a
Richard
bunch of
Dreyfuss.
there was a bunch of there was a bunch of supernatural people there, I think, too.
Right. Three of them, three of the boys group three. My name is Earl,
Oh,
the
there
two
was my
main
name is
cast members.
was Eli Roth there?
Yes, he was there too.
Oh, okay. So a little bit of a horror thing there too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
but I mean, you got to add like 125 per star, and that's
Oh,
to get an autograph. So I mean, because yeah, some cases it's 60, some cases it's 100. But if you average, you could say about 125 a star. And I mean that includes if you have to buy a picture or whatever.
hmm.
Yeah. And all of a
Well,
sudden it goes from, being something, oh good, I got, $1,000 to, oh my God, I'm not going to eat for a month.
well, I'm telling you, if you can score being in a sci-fi property or a fantasy property or superhero property, you can continue to make your money indefinitely, ad nauseum at any con. Because there are people, although I think now there are cons that are getting bigger name people. Like, wasn't Gina Davis at this one?
I believe she was for Beetlejuice.
Yeah, Gina Davis of Beetlejuice and Thelma and Louise. I mean, I guess what you could do is like
And
once
Susan
the
Sarandon, and Barry Broswick.
Bostwick, yeah, from Rocky Horror Picture Show. Excuse
Yeah,
me.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what I mean. That, you have to see them for various reasons, but each one you don't have the money for it.
Yeah,
I mean, even if you plan, life can get in the way in a whole year's time.
sure, sure. Like I said, I haven't been to the Fan Expo since maybe the second year it was called Fan Expo, I
I
think.
went last year. I was going to go this year, and then things happened. But to be honest, I probably could have did it, but I would have crunched myself, and I'm tired of crunching. That's one of the things as you get older, you get. No, I don't want to do that now.
Well, I think
I just
for
want
me, and why Fan Expo was a no was both the money and, this is my birthday weekend. I turn an indeterminate
older.
age.
Yes, you
I
leveled
turned
up. You
I
leveled up.
turned I turned 54 on the 4th of July. So yeah,
You
that
leveled
was
up.
yes, I leveled up. I'm not really counting any of these until I get to like 60, I think. I'm just like I'm in my 50s. Not because I have any kind of, oh, I'm getting older kind of weird ennui existential dread. I just the numbers don't appeal to me.
Well, like I
Like,
told you in one of our conversations, I think it was politics, is that, hey, I'm only on a 55 plus. That's why I say I don't even save 55
yeah,
and holding
yeah, it's like
because I'm going
55
to be a little bit
plus,
more honest than Jack Benny, just a little bit more
a little bit
honest.
more,
Plus.
right? Jack Benny, one of the subtler influences to my comedy, actually. It's by way of Dorothy in The Golden Girls, because I think she had the perfect kind of, sort of look out to the side kind of thing. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, no, which Jack Benny did, of course, but yeah, it was a little bit of money. It was a little bit, but it's my birthday week, so it's kind of hard to justify, oh, I'm going to go to this jam-packed convention center and barely move and spend a ton of money. But
Well, I
I
think one of the
also,
problems. Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, but part of it is like, I'm more interested and have always been more interested in the comic book people like Artists Alley and all of that. And those places are deader than dead typically. I mean, if you want to
Well,
hang out
yeah,
with a
because
comic book creator, I hung out with Peter Bagg of Hate and Buddy Bradley Comics. I made a total fool of myself. I was like, oh, everybody should be over here instead of over there. I like you even if they don't know you, which, if you say it back to yourself, you're like, oh, that's not very complimentary. But I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean it like that. But the
You were
foot was
impassioned
already,
with your fandom.
yeah, the foot
That's what
was
it
already
was.
in my mouth. But I mean, I really like him, and I really have always appreciated his work, and I just made a total fool of myself. I'm sure if he's still doing comics, I'm sure he's going to show some black buck-toothed character acting like an idiot to represent me at some point. Because but it was meant in full love. It was meant in full compliment. It's like, no, you should be what people are here to see, not an Iron
Well,
Man.
I think part of the problem is that the root of a lot of fandom is comic books in a nutshell.
Sure,
I mean,
sure. Or
between that and mythology and some TV shows, and even the TV shows do one or two things. They put them in superheroic situations,
sure,
and that includes is making the character have a crisis
sure,
all the time, and maybe give them an advantage, like Scorpion, you know,
sure.
or
Not
or give you the villain's point of view as in Hannibal. And
sure.
comics, gives the voice to. I remember it was I forgot what his name was offhand, and that sounds so bad when you forget a name. But he did one of the Star Trek books,
Okay.
novels.
Harlan
I think it was
Ellison.
Michael. No, I think it was Michael Jan, and I can't think his last name.
Oh, okay.
But he had did a paperback,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, I did a paperback, and I talked about this fleet of Klingons. And
Mm-hmm.
in the paperback, I can say there's thousands upon thousands. And then I tried to do it in the comic book, and the artist was mad at me because I hadn't thought about in the paperback. It's the imagination that you see these thousands and thousands of ships.
Sure.
Whereas in the comics, he's got to draw
Yeah,
even
he's got
some
to draw
squiggly
them.
line.
Sure. Sure. Uh, I ended up receiving a gift of like all of, I think, not next gen, but all of the episodes of the first gen Star Trek on DVD, plus
Mm.
the Captain's Log, sort of an anthology of all the episodes and such. I received that just a little bit ago, which was great. And
Mm.
yeah, it would. I guess doing it as a comic book would be difficult, but I think the Fan Expo, the problem, I don't know. I think when I the one of my, I think, yeah, actually, you know what? It might have been the last time I went to Fan Expo, might have been when Stan Lee was there.
Mm.
And I got his autograph and I got a picture with him.
Yeah.
And it was really kind of sad because it just felt like it's like, keep signing, old man. That's what the energy of him signing stuff was just like, oh, my fingers hurt. And they're like, keep signing. It had that kind of energy to it. And I just was like,
Oh, I
it just,
understand because that was the difference. I didn't get his autograph that time. I won't even lie. I
mhm,
got his autograph like on three or four things. Yeah, three or four things at Majesticon,
yeah,
and it was in the '90s. And to show you, he was just appreciative to be there. I didn't have to pay him.
no.
Okay.
Yeah. And see,
It-
for
it-
me, I had to pay, I think for that whole thing, it was like you got to get a Spider-Man poster with his signature, his book. Well, no, I had bought his book, so I think I had his signed autographed book anyway.
Mm.
Um, and the picture, I mean, it was a few $100 for sure. But I knew I was like, you know what, I better do this, uh, because he is not going to be with us for very long, and he wasn't. That was, I think, maybe a year or two before he died. So that tells you how long it's been since I've been to Fan Expo. I think I did go to one after that. So it's not entirely, I'm
Well,
not being
and see, the
completely
thing
honest
is,
there.
what you're talking about, that was year two. Why I said it was year two, because I remember year one there, it was barely 20,000 people there. Okay. And we hear over the intercom Stan Lee saying, "Yeah, you know what? I'll be here next year." And so, and it just totally went off the charts as far as people coming there. Because once he said it added legitimacy, but what people don't understand, we geeks, this is our connection, our communication, in some cases, even all but all but our faith. Keyword
Mm-hmm.
all but,
Sure.
and it's kind of invasive that a lot of people they can just jump on in. And I mean, you have the two camps. You have, well, we just want to share it with everybody. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then you have the other camp, like, I remember when I got my butt beat for liking this, or I
Sure.
got mocked for liking this, or talked
Sure.
about for 4 days. So
Sure.
you don't quite feel, and that's mainly our age.
Yeah, I think
I
so.
would say
Because I think we're
maybe 30. 30 is the oldest. I mean, youngest. And
I
that's
think
pushing it.
I think that's one of the reasons why this is called Old Man Blerd is because, the fact of the matter is that we were geeks when it was really not popular to be so. You were liking stuff that was questionable. You were questionable for liking it. Um, and
Cultural base, especially.
sure, and if you got it a little extra if you happen to be a black geek on top of that. Um,
Mm.
so I get it. There's always that little bit of resentment that rises when it's like, you guys, it, a lot of us older geeks were the only ones preserving this stuff and letting it pass to the next generation anyway. If we had just sort of given up on the whole thing, then it would have just died and there would be no Marvel Cinematic Universe because there would have never been anyone that would have been interested in it.
Well, that's one of the reasons I'm kind of prejudiced in this one true sense. And that's when I say I'm a gamer, and the first thing someone wants to say, because of our hue.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you play NBA? Do you play whatever Madden or something or Call of Duty? No, they play
Mm-hmm.
Skyrim.
Mm-hmm.
What? Yeah, I play Elden. Like, what? Yeah, I
Sure.
really go in deep, brother. I play a game. I play Mass Effect.
Sure. Sure. And
If I do a sports game, and don't get me wrong, most geeks like us, we do have like one or two. Like you as hockey, me as baseball and soccer. You
sure. Well, I
understand? We
like
do have
soccer
that
too.
sport.
Yeah,
So you
would you
understand what I mean?
yeah,
But we don't do the standard stereotype. That's what I'm trying to say.
oh for sure. And I think that the thing about it is that yeah, it's natural to have a little bit of resentment when something that you like and you knew a small group of people that liked it sort of gets exposed to the larger world because then you're just like, oh, now it's everybody. It's like, and I think that I remember when I knew it was going to change. I was at San Diego Comic-Con, the one we can actually call Comic-Con. And I remember that they had a box, like it was like a sort of a crate, and it was supposed to be the secret kind of, but the crate was exposed and was full of hay, and you could see the old Mark 1 Iron Man armor in it. And they were doing this big push for the new cinematic experience that was going to be Iron Man, that was going to come out I guess maybe it had to have been the year before it was coming out. But they had all this sort of stuff that was like, oh, it's coming. And I was like, yeah, yeah, we've had Marvel movies before. But it was Robert Downey Jr. He had been cast by that point. And it was like, oh, there was a lot more people around for that particular, and that was the 40th anniversary, I think, of of San Diego. And then I kind of knew, I was like, uh-oh, I think something might be happening, because I would go to the comic section and again, not a whole lot of people there. Ton of people just with the movie stuff. And I think it was the same year that the Golden Compass was coming out or something like that. Do you
Right,
remember?
right.
And I
Yes, the
was like,
golden compass.
yeah, and I was like, what's that doing
And
here? This isn't a comic book, you
well,
know?
see, one of the problems is that it is two things. Uh, it's easier marketing wise because I mean, love Stan, but Stan was basically Barnum, a flim flam man.
He kind of
In
was.
a
It's like
positive,
when
in a
you
positive
positive.
sense. I don't mean, you know,
Yeah, it wasn't entirely negative. I mean, but he, when you start to find out that he didn't do right by Ditko, he didn't do right by Kirby,
Kirby.
you know,
Yeah.
then you kind of start going, maybe this guy wasn't what I thought he was. Uh,
Right.
you
And
know,
there are
and
sometimes you wish that someone would have lived longer. What I mean was that it was one of the myths, because actually not a myth. I saw it on Entertainment Tonight.
mhm.
Was that when Batman came out, Michael Keaton, you know, Kane and Lee were both, basically rivals. So he was like, "Yeah, look, I got mine." So it would have been interesting if he just lived another, say, 20 years to see Iron Man and Spider Man come out.
Who now?
Bob Kane.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, because I think that, when there were superhero movies until that first Batman, the Keaton Batman, that was the first jump up where it was like, oh,
No, I don't
maybe
think so.
this, you don't think that was
I
the,
don't,
oh, Superman actually.
yeah,
Superman was,
Superman
yeah, the
one and
first
two,
Superman
not
with,
not 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 three or four. The
no, but
first
one,
two Superman.
the first two Supermans, with Superman 1 for sure, it was like, oh, you'll believe a man can fly. And I
Mm.
remember I was just gobsmacked. I was just blown away by that first Superman. Still one of the best superhero movies that I'd ever seen, and superhero experiences as well. And then it was kind of dead for a while. Then you had then you had um the Batman Michael Keaton and thing.
Mm.
And then after the first three, I guess, then that died, because
Well, I
after
would say the
after
first two.
first two, because then it was like Batman suit with nipples. Come on, it got a little strange.
Well, see, one of the interesting things was is that with Batman. Now, here's the interesting thing is that you had Michael Keaton, and Michael Keaton, I think, played the best duality. Keyword duality.
Sure.
You know what I mean? As far as being Batman and Bruce Wayne. I think Val Kilmer did the best straight Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I think George Clooney did the best Batman as far as when he wasn't trying to be cheesy, because they were trying to do the Adam West cheese. But
Sure.
when he was just, just straight off Batman, I think he was intimidating. I mean, and it can be argued, you know, Ben Affleck, he did the more angry Batman, but he didn't do it as much as, yeah, we have modern weapons, but if you see Batman in, Detective
Hmm.
19, 2027, he was brutal.
Sure.
I mean, he was. There was no niceness about it. He was brutal because he's like, if you're going to do this, this is what I have to do. This is the price you have to pay.
Yeah.
But, and this is one of the things that people don't understand. And that's Joel Schumacher's biggest mistake was
Hmm.
that he didn't like that. And he's one of the reasons why the last three Batman or four, two Batman, I said three and four. I meant as in number three, number four, not as in more movies.
Hmm.
Didn't do as good as because he tried to tone him down.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's true.
Yeah. And then the
Yeah.
next burst came with Blade. And the next
Yeah.
burst after Blade came with X-Men.
Yeah. But it feels like, and maybe, I mean, just, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but it feels like until the Marvel Cinematic Universe, all of those other movies were thought more to be flukes. They weren't thought to be like, oh no, this is a thing, you know? But when they
I,
got
I,
to the
I,
the Avengers and they were building the Avengers with all of the um credits sneak, the little sequences during the credits, that's when it was like, oh, maybe they are building something bigger. And then they started
See, the
having
problem
movie
with
after
Marvel
movie.
versus DC
Hmm.
was that DC tried to be Marvel. And
Yes.
what I mean by that is the same thing with Universal. Universal, we're going to do the Dark Universe. No one had anything against either intention, but the problem is they didn't know how to do what they wanted to do.
That's true.
And that's the best way to put it. Because like DC would still be around if they went the way of Superman as far as being, how should I put it, mischievous. Because
Explain. Yeah.
Christopher Reeve Superman and Brandon Ross Superman were both mischievous.
Uh-huh.
What I mean is like, yeah, I didn't lie, Luthor, but he didn't tell him everything. I didn't do this, but he tricked him.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, he found a way to get around what was presented to him. And if they did that instead of trying to be super dark, I mean, Batman's already dark, so they can get around that.
Sure.
But Batman versus Superman should have been a light versus dark. It shouldn't have
Yeah.
been this,
They
you
they
know.
did. Yeah, they didn't make. But the problem is that except for Deadpool, no one seems to understand how to make smiling superheroes. Because even Spider-Man isn't the jokey Spider-Man that
He
would
was in
be.
Amazing Spider-Man series in the little two with Andrew Garfield. He was the snarky one, you
Andrew
know.
Garfield had a little bit of it. Tobey Maguire didn't have very much at all.
I was going
And
to
I
say Tom
think,
Holland didn't have it at
and
all neither.
well, I think Tom Holland had it a little bit when he first appeared in that Avengers, or was it Civil War? I can't
It was in
remember.
Civil War. It
Yeah,
was
when he
Civil War.
appeared in Civil War and he's like, whoa, looking at the shield and stuff and catching the truck. I mean, there are moments, but they really go heavy on the pathos and light on the humor. And really, the only place that they allow for any humor in any of these movies is the Deadpool ones and maybe the
Mm,
Ant-Man.
yeah,
And,
and that's one of the things because DC, that's more of what they're supposed to be like.
well, certainly
You know,
everything
and,
aside
that, and that,
from Batman. I mean, there are moments when Wally West Flash is pretty jokey.
I mean,
There
because the only
there
one
is
who's supposed to be solemn to a degree, but is more of it's more of the way he was raised, as in the duality of his world, is
who?
Aquaman.
Oh,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? Aquaman is supposed to be more of that from the point of view, like his father's side is more jokey, if you will, while his
sure,
mother's side is more regal.
sure.
So, having it done that way would have worked. And I mean, the Flash, again, they actually did that with CW when they did the TV show. They had the more humor because really nothing could hurt him,
No, and
and when it did, it was rare.
they also, because it was serialized, which I think the best medium for live action superheroes is television. I think television will always do better because you can serialize it. You can have cliffhangers, you can build stories, you can build characters. I mean, there was I don't know how many issues before they even revealed that the Green Goblin was Harry Osborn. I mean, it
Well,
was a
no, because what you're
long,
saying is
long
absolutely
time.
true. Because I mean, it goes back to what I say is superhero television, and I'm not talking about like when they did Captain Nice or Mister Terrific. I'm not saying those because those weren't bad, but they were more of a parody.
Hmm.
What I mean by true superhero is more like the Knight Rider or the $6 Million Man. Both of those were more superhero stylish, or even the Sentinel, you know, style of more than normal or
Hmm.
mainstream as far as the beam goes. And sometimes, like even what was it, Luke Han, which was the boy that was raised by wolves. The actor actually died 2 weeks ago,
Oh,
but
okay.
at 70.
Hmm.
But I mean, this is the same point. Or the Phoenix was that a lot of times these guys they didn't want so much to be a superhero, and that's one of the biggest things that gets me with a lot of people when it comes to superheroes. They're mad at the character for having an edge because of how they were born. You know what I
Yes.
mean?
Well,
And instead of thinking, okay, I was born this, but think like a person who is rich. I mean, the best example is they did it years ago when they had Johnson Johnson #4,
hmm,
as in the fourth descendant of the original Johnson Johnson. It was talking about how he'll inherit more money than anybody ever would know.
sure,
And they did a little reality series on HBO for about one season. But the point was, he probably was one of the most humble, nice people,
sure.
which was interesting because they were following him and his friends. And the biggest a-hole, if you will, was, and it would make sense, was the guy whose father made money from chips, as in gambling chips.
Oh,
So
okay.
he saw the dark side of man. So he was more cynical. He was more, yeah, you know. And I mean, that's the way it should be with superheroes. Is that don't punish me because my mother is a goddess. Don't punish me because I'm from another planet. You know.
Sure. But I do think that they don't have a lot of levity with comics. And I think that I think one of the reasons why is because I feel like producers, actors, screenwriters, all of these people are afraid that the comic book property that they're doing is not going to be taken seriously anyway. And so they just heap on an extra ton of seriousness. And these are supposed to be kind of lighter stories. They don't
Yeah,
have to all they don't have
when
to
Brandon Ross
be.
was. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say they don't all have to be Sin City, Watchmen, and Dark Knight Batman. I mean, those were great stories. Those people often point to those as, whenever they come out with their comic books aren't just for kids anymore, articles. But, I think and I feel like having it be all of the cinematic elements of comic books is why Fan Expo was just not for me, because it's like I do like the films of all. I mean, I like the films, they're fine, but nothing's going to ever for me come close to what it was like reading Killing Joke for the first time, or Dark Knight Batman for that matter, or Watchmen, or the first time I read a Marvel team up, you know super
Well, no, and also
Spider-Man
see the.
with Nightcrawler. I mean, or
Oh no,
those
no,
burn
I was
issues
thinking.
with that he did.
I have Spider-Man with John Belushi Samurai.
Yeah, I have that. The not ready for primetime players. I still have that
Oh yeah,
issue.
that was yeah. I
It
have
was
that.
like
Oh
there was
God.
like it was Spider-Man teams up with the not ready for primetime players. That's where you're like, I think Marvel's editorial in the 70s, they were partaking of the cannabis.
They
They
they were
were
just everywhere.
all
That's all to put.
all those Jim
They were
Starlin
everywhere
issues and Howard the Duck issues. It's like, oh, you guys were smoking a buttload of pot, I bet.
or something. I mean, they were everywhere.
It was like, I think, anyone who reads any Adam Warlock or Captain Marvel at that time, they get out there. Doctor Strange too. And so that's the problem for me, is that I want that spirit to be captured in Fan Expo. But Fan Expo at this point is movies, the actors in movies, and the costumes from the movies. And it's just like I feel
Well, see,
like,
it's not even about the comics anymore. It's about experience. I
yeah,
mean, because
and that's fine.
psychiatrists have always said, the mental health people, experience is more important than stuff. But what people don't understand, as I've said before, I'm a stuffer, but as a stuffer, comic book collecting, that is the joy
Sure.
of opening the book, that experience,
Sure.
or
And
the impossibility, like the Justice League versus Kong versus Godzilla,
sure.
the total absurdity. That's one of the fun comics that came out this year, you know.
Sure.
And
Well, and
I
and
mean, and
was oh, I'm sorry, go on.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, what didn't you
I
see
was just gonna
something that
say,
oh, go ahead.
what we're gonna do this little dance, okay?
I know, right? You
But
first.
no, what gets me is you have fandom has gone down the path of non-fun. That's the one thing I hate, is that fandom's gone down the path of non-fun.
It
Because,
feels like it's very commerce now. I mean, and I know that sounds
well,
like
not just that.
that's true to the old man Blerd, sounding like a grumpy old man who just celebrated his birthday. But I do think that, yeah, it's like, I don't know. I
No,
just
what I mean by not fun is like you used to, and we have discussed this many times in private and on the other podcasts and everything. It used to be they would just do a character.
hmm
That's all it was. They would just. I mean, the best example is like the toy maker in Doctor Who,
hmm
with Neil Patrick Harris.
hmm
You know, couldn't think of anybody better other than the original, and they could have did him, or they could have even changed his look. They could have did a morph scene. I think that would have been cool. You know what I mean?
hmm
From his original look to the one he has now, that would have been cool. But
Sure.
my point is they got rid of Celestial because it offends the Chinese
Sure.
culture. And
Sure.
I mean, three things. One, I'm a fairness freak. So do they question what they do to us? A lot of cultures don't question when they do things.
Sure.
We both have talked about the exaggeration, the anime about our hue
Sure.
in
Yeah,
certain old
anime
shows and
does
stuff.
tend to make black people look a bit like Sambo.
Exactly. And I mean, because they're just doing the book. They are not partaking of their correctness in that
Sure.
sense. Or you do a character, well, we have to make a character queer.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I'm not saying that nobody should be. Never would say that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like I told you before. Now I'm starting to like what they did with Alan Scott, because when Alan Scott was changed to gay, I was very upset. Not because Alan Scott was gay, but because to me it made a lot of sense that he got a divorce from his wife because his affair was being a Green Lantern.
Mm-hmm.
You missed the birthday party. Why to go
Sure.
save this plane?
Sure.
Yeah, that to me was a whole dynamic that really has never been investigated.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually did it there for a little while, and then they decide, well, he's gay, and it's like, okay, there goes that story. You know,
Yeah. So you were disappointed more by the story than the sexuality. Well, and if it's natural,
exactly.
I
'Cause
mean, we could beat that dead horse again, of course, at making things organic or natural. But
well, yeah, but oh, well, now you think about that. In that case, I was just thinking, God, we have like 8 human Green Lanterns. There you go.
sure,
There you go. Couldn't care less.
they really could do a really wiggy Green Lantern, but as a movie, they could make that psychedelic as heck for sure and out there. I mean, Mogo, he's a planet that's a Green Lantern, for goodness sakes. I mean, they could do some really wiggy stuff, but they won't, because they need to show a romance and they need to show a crisis of
But see,
faith, and they got to make sure everything's grim and gritty and dark and everything. So,
and we'll see. The sad part about that, as we've discussed before too, is that one of the most grim characters could be Two Face, as in the Two Face persona half of Harvey Dent decides to totally take over,
sure,
and he just starts doing all these atrocious crimes. I mean, crimes that you and I would never even associate with a character
sure,
that they try to do with the Joker once in a while when they want to show how dark he is. But here's Harvey Dent, who's like, you know what? I'm going to show what kind of criminal I can be because I know the law.
sure,
And it could
sure.
be everything from speeding ticket, which, yeah, it's stupid, to crimes you and I go, what? You can't do it
Right.
in the book. But it would be good for the character. And see, that's the problem again, is when you're trying to do stuff as a character, what
Mm-hmm.
would the character do versus what they do? And then it's a money grab sometimes. And also, I mean, me myself is different companies need to do different things. Like Marvel, just have a virus go
Mm-hmm.
through and affect Kang. Like you have Doom be the villain, and his only rival is Kang, and he almost kills Kang, but instead it alters all of their appearance.
Hmm.
So you have a different actor play Major's part in Kang. There you go.
Hmm.
It's easy. It doesn't stop the story. It just has a different actor, great explanation. Shows you how dangerous Doom is, but also shows you how much Kang is like, really, you know.
Well, I
And
think
this,
I
go
think we
ahead.
need to have a couple things. I we need to have a deep dive into how we would fix certain characters and fix certain properties. But yeah, I have to admit the Fan Expo thing and it being mostly celebrities and mostly movies, it doesn't draw me in as much. And I always feel weird that there's all these stars that aren't quite stars anymore sitting at tables, and you see that look when no one's at their table, and it just feels sad. It's like passing by the puppy in the pet store that no one's adopting. It's just like
Unfortunately, that's true.
it's
Especially,
oh
it's
God,
when
it's
you
like
wish you had one more dollar. It's literally when you wish you had one more dollar. I'm going to go get your autograph. Oh, wait a minute, my wallet's got moths.
yeah,
I
because
mean, really.
I don't think anyone's doing it. Come on, dog. I don't think anyone's doing it because I mean I think some people do it because they really like engaging with the fans. But I think there's a little bit of like I'm not really acting now. I've been typecast in this role forever. I might as well sign some autographs and make some money at it and nod politely when you say that was a really important part of your childhood. It just has that vibe to it for me. And when celebrities become more important than the comic books themselves or the movies themselves, that just feels weird to me. That just feels weird to me. You know, I think it's better when it's like a horror festival because then it's just like, oh, everybody's there for horror. or if it's just comic books and then everybody's there just for comics. But these fan expos where it's like, yeah, here's some sci-fi people, here's some fantasy writers, here's some comic book artists, here's some, celebrities, A, B, C, and D list celebrities that were in some of your favorite fill in the blank property. There's just a
Well,
weird,
I
it just
don't have
makes
a
me feel
problem with that
weird.
from the point of view because if there's a connection, what I mean is if there's a connection like you said, comics, well, if they have a comic show and it just has all the comic actors from comic movies, okay. Or a video game show, the same thing, okay. But I mean, what you're saying is just basically just take my money at the door, basically, is what you're saying. Is no
Yeah.
even real any connection
Well,
is one thing. And the other thing is to me, the fan dollar. I mean, we can talk back and forth about, well, you're paying for the service, you're paying for this. The one thing I really don't like about the Fan Expo is the exploitation of the geek dollar
sure.
because most of us are working class. Yeah, you have those that are intellectual and they're doing this and they're doing that.
Software
But
engineers that have 20 grand to drop that weekend.
yeah, but as a whole, I would say there's more of them in our world in the mainstream,
Sure.
but still there's less of them than us as a whole.
Hmm.
Because sometimes we can understand, but there's no career or whatever else, blah, blah, blah. But to the point, we don't make the money. And, you're going to charge us $5 for a hot dog. Well, that's the hotel rate,
Hmm.
and then you're going to charge us $20 to park.
Sure.
And then you're going to charge us to go in.
Sure.
And then you're going to have security. And, you can't laugh wrong. You can't do this. You can't do that.
Hmm.
Because someone is disturbed. It's the same thing. You could walk around with something and someone is offended.
Sure.
Literally, you can go to security and you got to be told to get rid of that.
Sure.
I mean, it used to be that like we saw pink Darth Vader,
Hmm.
no one cared. We're just like, okay,
Yeah.
that's different.
Yeah, you got the samurai that would be sort of a takeoff on a psychedelic version of Darth Vader. Yeah, it was just you were seeing all that stuff. But yeah, I don't know. There's just an element that feels desperate. Like
Why do you feel old at cons?
why do I feel old at cons? Um, I don't really feel old at cons.
Out of place?
I feel more out of place than I used to. I feel like when I went to San Diego before, and that was the last year before it turned into being this huge thing. Um, I got into all kinds of great conversations just waiting in lines, just queuing up,
And
waiting in
that's what
lines.
you meant.
You could talk to anyone that was around you about things, and they knew what you were talking about. Like you would be in a line and they'd be like, "Oh, how are you thinking? What are you thinking of Jeff John's run on JSA or whatever?" And people would know. It was literally like going to a foreign country, but you happen to know the language, you know? Now
That's truly what it is. It's because when I've had people tell me that when I go to cons, I'm an animated.
Mhm.
And it's because when you do go to a con, it's basically, for lack of a better term, you're among your people.
Yeah,
We all share the love.
and now it doesn't feel that way. Now it feels as though
You're an invader in your own land.
yeah, now it feels as though I'm I don't know. It's like Moses coming down from the mountain and everybody's worshiping a cow, and you're like, "Hey, I was just up
Yes.
there, with the burning bush, and it was pretty cool." And everybody's like, "Yeah, whatever, bazinga." You know?
No, what you
So,
say is true because that's part of the way I feel is like a friend of mine I use the term loosely because we haven't spoken in years, so we know where he's at. But he used to go to Sturgis all the time.
hmm.
And he said he stopped going to Sturgis because of women. And this sounds sexist, but what he meant was, you know, when they're young, they're like, yeah, let's go do it over here, blah, blah, blah. We're a couple, blah, blah, blah. But as soon as they become a mother, okay, we're not doing that no more. No, you don't wear that no more. So Sturgis went from this wild party to this family event. And it's
Sure.
kind of the same thing with Fan Expo. You know,
Well, it went
I
to
know
it. Yeah, it went
I was
from a
going
place
to say
where
it's going. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, yeah, it went from a place where everybody knew the language and you could talk to anybody about all of it to, really being in a situation where you could talk to somebody and the only thing you probably have in common is that you've seen the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like,
See, in my case,
you
I feel
wouldn't have
old.
necessarily, you would have to maybe look around to find people where it's like, oh yeah, I really liked his run on Daredevil, or I really liked his blah blah blah. It's like, Frank Miller was supposed to be at this one, but I guess he canceled. And I think I saw him at San Diego anyway, and I think I saw him at that Fan Expo with Stan Lee anyway. But yeah, that's the idea that you could go to something that you cherished, loved, nurtured, and arguably, not to break my arm patting ourselves on the back, was a part of a generation that kept it alive so that it could become the phenomenon that it is, and not really recognizing any of it. It's like, it's like being born in Paris and then going back to Paris and it's like, where's the Eiffel Tower? It's like, there is no Eiffel Tower anymore.
Oh no,
There's no Champs-Élysées, or anything like that. Uh-oh. I think that I lost Terrance. He vanished. Uh-oh. He will probably be readmitted at any moment now in the room. Oh, there he is.
yeah,
Back?
yeah, yeah, threw me out.
You got kicked
I
out.
was saying, yeah, I was talking to myself for a second. It's like, wait a minute, I know I'm crazy, but damn.
Well, I think it's probably because
But no, I only
it.
feel old.
Go ahead.
I only feel old in one way, and
Uh-huh.
that was most geeks, especially geeks of our hue of a certain age,
Mm-hmm.
we had to walk on eggshells because of what we love.
Sure.
And it saddens and it makes me mad at the same time. You go to a convention now and people could be so offended
Sure.
where you could just talk. That's where I feel old. Because I mean, you
Yeah.
could just talk about the most absurd, the Joker killed this person this way. Yeah, he did this, he did, yeah. And you don't agree, you don't like it, but you're talking about the character.
Sure.
Now
And
someone could go, well, I'm offended, or well, I
well,
feel this way.
I
You're
don't know
going,
if it would even be that they would be offended. I don't think they'd even know what you were talking about. Like, I guess, like what I guess what it and it sounds elitist and insular and all of the things, but I'm just going to allow it for the sake of the conversation and not entirely be mindful. But it's like, there was I guess you could go to Fan Expo now and probably the percentage of people that have read the comics is probably pretty low. It's
well, that's the best
probably
example of
it's
what we have
probably
heard.
less than 10-20%. Whereas I think that first year when it was still Denver Comicon, I think it was closer to 70-80%.
Well, I think one of the things that people don't understand, and this is really kind of like double-edged sword. And what I mean by that is they want to dress up with the characters. They want to watch the movies.
Mm-hmm.
They want to stand behind the banner,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't want to go to where its heart was, which is a comic book. A lot of people will go to these things and have no idea that they were even a comic book character,
Uh-huh.
let
Yeah.
alone, or even care they were a comic book character.
Well,
Or they'll sit there and they'll tell you, well, I like this version. Best example is the Joker. That's the
uh-huh.
best example is the Joker. You know, people, well, I like the Heath Ledger edition or version or whatever they want to say.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at it as a character that has different reflections.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the creator's edition, if you will, you know, Robinson's creation style would be more Cesar Romero,
Sure.
where he was a clown and he wanted to have fun and he wanted to kill you as a side effect.
Sure.
It wasn't that he wanted to kill you, but if you died, it was no sweat off his brow,
Sure.
you know. And the Jack Nicholson was more, I will kill you,
Mm-hmm.
but it's part of who I am versus the Heath Ledger, which is more of I'm an anarchist and I've had a bad life.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the Joker in both cases, as far as Cesar Romero and Jack Nicholson, they snap because of a bad event.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Heath Ledger is thrown up and you have all these people jump. trying to emulate and speak, and they're so impassioned, and I'm great. As a fan of comics, I'm glad the character spoke to them.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like Deadpool. I'm glad the character spoke to you, but do you understand why the character is that way? Do you even care why the character is that way?
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
Deadpool is a reflection of the nightmare of I can't die.
sure.
You know, so this makes him snap in a different sense. I can't die, so where I should have no fear. Instead, it makes me crazy because everything I love is going to die before me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I did want to, we're going to have to wrap it up just for the recording purposes, but do you have a nope or a dope?
Nope.
Or ladies and gentlemen, sometimes we have nope or dope. Nope is
I have a
something
nope, but it's going to get me in trouble.
Nope, that is something we do not like and cannot abide in geekdom or in all of these things. Or dope, something that's really great. It's going to get you in trouble?
Nope. Yep.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, I tentatively am asking, what is it?
Con fees.
Con fees. Oh, it's like the fees that to get to the con. Yep. That checks out with the subject of Fan Expo a go-go. No,
I mean,
a go-go.
that's more than anything. I don't mind paying the celebrity because you'll swallow that pill if you want to see them.
Sure.
But and then the hotel fees. And I'm not talking about the room. I'm talking about okay, yesterday the hot dog was $3 today because the expo is $8.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's a pretty solid nope. I have a nope. I had mentioned this gentleman to you before. Not going to get into politics. Politics is a different podcast, but it does apply to geekdom a little bit. There is a billionaire, oil billionaire named Tim Dunn in Texas, who loves preaching and talking about comic book characters and superheroes and everything else. But in terms of how he's remaking Texas politics, he's totally Luthor. And somebody needs to tell him, Tim Dunn, you're Lex Luthor. You're not Superman. And he, invokes superheroes all the time. And it's like just another thing where it's like, oh, you don't really get it, do you? He has come out against a lot of LGBTQ stuff. He's kind of a nationalist, sort of what they call a Christian nationalist. He's bankrolling some icky stuff, but loves comic books, loves comic book characters. And it's like, oh, you almost got it. So Tim
Which
Dunn,
is actually sad because the whole point of comic books is against a greater evil and to support society or to make it so that the weakest of weak has a strength behind them.
Yeah, it's no greater love hath a man than this than to lay down their life for another. It's like that's the whole thing is like superheroes are selfless actors. And you are just trying to destroy all kinds of things and doing it in any number of ways. Not trying to sound woke or anything, blah, blah, blah. But, he's look into him, Tim Dunn, likes comic book characters, kind of a comic book villain. But anyway, I guess where can people find you, Terrance?
Drakestorm@gmail.com.
Drakestorm@gmail.com. You can find me at thatsoquantum@gmail.com or drupgu108@gmail.com. Send us your thoughts and opinions or, in any place. Write a review, like us, subscribe, do all of the things, and let us know what your view on cons is at this point. I think at some point, Terrance, if you want to, we can do a live podcast. I think I can get the Twitch up and see if we can get some live people responding to us. They would like to see your beautiful face, so you might have to set up at a desk or something.
Oh no.
No. But that's in the pipe work.
Goals eventually.
Yeah, that's a goal eventually. Maybe we'll get a chance to talk to Etienne again about Legos. But so Fan Expo. No, sorry. Maybe next year, maybe sometime. Maybe the whole thing has to die down a bit. I do like the kids being there. That is a dope thing for me. Kids going to cons and expos, no matter how much they cost, that's a good thing. But definitely the Nope, the fees, hotel fees, and Tim Dunn, comic book fan, actual comic book going. So anyways, as we like to say, don't be a stranger.
Just be strange.
And we will see you on another time. And yeah, that's my dog calling my attention. So ladies and gentlemen, take care.